There are 195 countries scattered across our planet in 2025, and while you might think you know the basics about world geography, the reality is far more remarkable than you could imagine. China now operates the world's largest high-speed rail network at over 45,000 kilometers, while Bhutan maintains its status as the only carbon-negative country on Earth. From nations that have revolutionized their transportation systems to countries achieving ambitious environmental targets, the world has changed dramatically in ways that most people never hear about. What you're about to discover will shift how you see global progress and show you how these rail journeys and carbon strategies reshape our view of what's possible. These 20 facts will leave you absolutely stunned about what countries have accomplished when they set their minds to transformation. China's revolutionary transportation network. Let's start with China, where crossing the country has become completely different from what it was just a decade ago. Imagine trying to travel from east to west 10 years ago. You would need multiple days on slow trains, countless transfers, and endless hours staring out windows at the same scenery. Today you can travel that same distance in less time than it takes to watch a few movies. China now operates the world's most extensive high-speed rail network, covering over 38,000 kilometers as of 2025. This network has grown from practically nothing to become the largest transportation system ever built by humans. The scale becomes clear when you consider what this network actually connects. Cities that once required 2 or 3 days of travel by conventional train now sit just hours apart. Guangzhou to Beijing used to mean an exhausting 22-hour journey on regular railways. The same trip now takes 8 hours on high-speed rail. Passengers step onto trains that look more like aircraft interiors than traditional rail cars, with comfortable seating and smooth rides that make the journey feel effortless. Building this network required solving engineering challenges that seemed impossible just decades ago. Construction crews laid tracks across the Gobi Desert, where temperatures swing from scorching heat to bitter cold. They tunneled through mountain ranges and built bridges over valleys that stretch for kilometers. Every kilometer of track had to be perfectly aligned, because even tiny imperfections become dangerous at these velocities. Beijing to Shanghai represents the crown jewel of this system. Passengers board sleek trains that accelerate smoothly to 350 kilometers per hour, covering the 1,318-kilometer distance in just 4 hours and 28 minutes. The trains maintain these speeds while passengers barely feel any vibration or noise. Windows provide clear views of Chinese countryside that streams past like a high-definition movie. Business travelers who once spent entire days traveling between these cities now complete round trips in a single day. The economic transformation has been remarkable. Rural workers can now commute daily to Beijing for the first time in history, traveling distances that once meant permanent relocation. Factory workers living in smaller cities can access jobs in major metropolitan areas. This connectivity has spread economic development beyond traditional urban centers, creating opportunities in regions that previously had limited access to major markets. To understand the true scale, consider that 38,000 kilometers equals the distance from New York to Los Angeles traveled more than 13 times. The network now reaches every major Chinese city and connects to neighboring countries through international routes. The system carries over 3 billion passengers annually, moving more people than the entire global population travels by high-speed rail elsewhere. China has created the largest transportation revolution in modern history, transforming a country where most people never traveled far from home into one where crossing vast distances has become routine. But transportation networks are just one way countries are reshaping themselves through massive infrastructure projects. Egypt's massive urban experiment. Egypt decided to solve urban overcrowding by building an entire city from scratch in the desert. The new administrative capital project was designed to house 6.5 million people, creating a brand new metropolis where only sand existed before. This massive undertaking required moving mountains of earth, pouring millions of tons of concrete, and installing infrastructure systems that most countries take decades to develop. The scale becomes clear when you realize it covers an area larger than Singapore. Construction crews worked across 700 square kilometers of desert, transforming empty wasteland into a fully functioning urban center. The Egyptian government planned every street, every building, and every utility line from the beginning. Workers laid thousands of kilometers of roads, installed water systems that can serve millions of people, and built power grids capable of supporting a population larger than many entire countries. This city was built specifically to relieve pressure on overcrowded Cairo. Cairo houses over 20 million people in a space never designed for such massive populations. Traffic jams last for hours, apartments cost more than most Egyptians can afford, and basic services struggle to keep up with demand. The new administrative capital spreads this population across a much larger area with modern infrastructure designed from the start to handle millions of residents. The futuristic architecture includes Africa's tallest skyscraper, standing as a monument to Egyptian ambition. This tower reaches higher than any building on the African continent, containing offices, apartments, and commercial spaces across dozens of floors. Surrounding buildings feature glass facades, modern geometric designs, and energy-efficient construction that contrasts sharply with Cairo's ancient architecture. Streets follow planned layouts with wide boulevards, dedicated bike lanes, and pedestrian walkways. Smart city technology has been integrated throughout every system. Traffic management uses sensors and cameras to optimize traffic flow and reduce congestion. Waste systems automatically sort recyclables and manage garbage collection routes based on real-time data. Street lights adjust brightness based on pedestrian traffic. Water systems monitor usage and detect leaks instantly. These technologies create efficiency levels that older cities cannot match. Moving government operations and convincing people to relocate presented enormous challenges. Government employees had to abandon familiar offices in Cairo for new buildings in an unfamiliar city. Families faced decisions about leaving established neighborhoods, schools, and social networks. The government offered financial incentives, subsidized housing, and job guarantees to encourage relocation. Environmental considerations shaped the city's design from the beginning. Buildings incorporate green building standards that reduce energy consumption and water usage. Solar panels and wind turbines provide renewable energy sources. Green spaces and parks create cooling zones that combat desert heat. This represents one of the largest planned city projects in human history, demonstrating that entire urban centers can be created through careful planning and massive investment. While Egypt built cities from nothing, other countries have discovered entirely different approaches to attracting people and transforming their economies. Thailand's digital nomad revolution. Thailand took a completely different approach by recognizing that the modern workforce had fundamentally changed. The country's digital nomad visa program has attracted over 100,000 remote workers by 2025, transforming Thailand into a destination where people live permanently while working for companies based thousands of miles away. Thailand redesigned its visa system specifically to attract location-independent professionals who previously struggled with tourist visa limitations and complex work permit requirements. The traditional visa system forced remote workers to leave the country every few months or navigate bureaucratic processes designed for traditional employment. Thai officials recognized that digital workers represented a new category of international resident who needed different immigration solutions. They created visa categories that acknowledged the reality of modern remote work, allowing people to live in Thailand while maintaining employment with foreign companies. The specific benefits include long-term stays that extend far beyond typical tourist visas and tax advantages that make Thailand financially attractive. Digital nomads can now obtain visas valid for multiple years rather than the standard 30 or 60-day tourist entries. The tax structure provides advantages for people earning income from foreign sources, reducing the overall cost of living in Thailand. These benefits eliminate the uncertainty and expense of constant visa runs that previously made long-term stays difficult for remote workers. Cities like Chiang Mai and Bangkok have transformed to accommodate this influx of international remote workers. Chiang Mai developed entire neighborhoods where English-speaking businesses, international restaurants, and co-working spaces cater specifically to digital nomads. Bangkok expanded its already substantial expat infrastructure to include services designed for people who work online during Western business hours. Coffee shops now advertise reliable Wi-Fi speeds and quiet working environments. Apartment buildings offer furnished units with high-speed internet included in monthly rental packages. The economic impact of these high-spending digital professionals on local communities has been substantial. Digital nomads typically earn Western salaries while spending money in Thailand's lower-cost economy, creating significant purchasing power. Local businesses have adapted to serve this market, with restaurants offering international cuisine, fitness centers providing classes in English, and service providers catering to Western expectations. Infrastructure improvements made to support reliable internet and co-working spaces have benefited both nomads and local residents. Internet providers upgraded networks to handle the increased demand for high-speed connections. Cities installed public Wi-Fi in parks and commercial areas. Co-working spaces emerged in locations that previously lacked modern office facilities. Cultural exchange between nomads and local Thai communities has enriched both groups. Thai people learn about different business practices and international perspectives from nomads who work with companies worldwide. Digital nomads gain exposure to Thai culture through daily interactions with local residents. Thailand has positioned itself as the global hub for remote work by adapting to fundamental changes in how people work internationally. But while Thailand attracted people through policy changes, some countries have achieved remarkable transformations through completely different strategies. Colombia's green energy breakthrough. Colombia transformed from a country known for conflict into a renewable energy leader through strategic use of its diverse geography. This nation that spent decades dealing with internal strife has become South America's leading producer of renewable energy. The same mountains that once provided hiding places for armed groups now generate clean electricity for millions of people across the continent. The country leveraged its geography from mountains to coasts for clean energy production in ways that few nations can match. The Andes Mountains provide perfect conditions for hydroelectric dams that capture rushing water from high elevations. The Caribbean and Pacific coasts offer consistent wind patterns that power massive turbine installations. Desert regions in the north receive intense solar radiation that photovoltaic panels convert into electricity. This geographical diversity means Colombia can generate renewable energy during different seasons and weather conditions when other countries struggle with intermittent power sources. Massive solar and wind projects have come online across Colombian territory in recent years. The La Loma Solar Farm in Cesar covers thousands of hectares with panels that produce enough electricity to power entire cities. Wind installations along the Caribbean coast use turbines that stand taller than most buildings, capturing ocean breezes that blow consistently throughout the year. These projects required massive investments in infrastructure, including new transmission lines that carry electricity from remote generation sites to population centers hundreds of kilometers away. Hydroelectric power has been supplemented with innovative renewable sources that take advantage of Colombia's unique environmental conditions. Traditional hydroelectric dams now work alongside floating solar panels installed on reservoir surfaces. Small-scale hydroelectric plants capture energy from streams that were previously too small for conventional power generation. Biomass facilities convert agricultural waste from coffee farms and sugar plantations into electricity, creating value from materials that were once discarded. Government policies accelerated this green transition through tax incentives and regulatory changes that encouraged renewable energy investment. The government eliminated import taxes on solar panels and wind turbines, making these technologies more affordable for developers. New regulations simplified the permitting process for renewable energy projects, reducing bureaucratic delays that previously discouraged investment. The economic benefits of energy independence have transformed Colombia's outlook. The country now produces more electricity than it consumes, allowing exports to neighboring countries that generate foreign currency revenue. Rural communities have gained access to electricity for the first time through these renewable energy projects. Remote villages that never had electrical service now receive power from small solar installations and microhydroelectric plants. Environmental restoration happens alongside energy development as companies plant forests around renewable energy installations and restore damaged ecosystems. Colombia proves that developing nations can lead in sustainability when governments create supportive policies and leverage natural advantages. But while some countries harness natural resources for progress, others are using cutting-edge technology to unlock secrets from their past. Iraq's archaeological renaissance. Iraq has discovered numerous new archaeological sites using advanced satellite technology that reveals hidden structures buried beneath centuries of sand and debris. This technological revolution allows archaeologists to identify potential dig sites without ever setting foot on the ground, transforming how researchers approach ancient civilizations. High-resolution satellite imagery and ground-penetrating radar have revolutionized archaeology by providing detailed views of underground structures that remain invisible to the naked eye. Satellites capture images that show subtle changes in soil color and vegetation patterns that indicate buried walls, roads, and buildings. Ground-penetrating radar sends electromagnetic pulses into the earth that bounce back when they hit solid objects, creating detailed maps of what lies beneath the surface. These technologies work together to create comprehensive pictures of ancient sites before excavation begins. Specific discoveries have emerged from this technological approach that would have remained hidden for decades using traditional archaeological methods. Researchers identified a previously unknown Sumerian city near Nasiriyah that covers several square kilometers. Satellite imagery revealed the outlines of massive temple complexes, residential areas, and irrigation canals that supported thousands of inhabitants over 4,000 years ago. Another discovery near Baghdad uncovered evidence of Babylonian settlements with sophisticated urban planning, including paved streets and drainage systems that demonstrate advanced engineering knowledge. These findings are changing our understanding of Mesopotamian civilization by revealing the true scale and complexity of ancient Iraqi societies. The new sites show that cities were larger and more numerous than previously believed. Evidence suggests trade networks extended much further than archaeologists thought possible, with artifacts indicating connections to civilizations in India, Egypt, and Central Asia. The discoveries reveal sophisticated agricultural systems that supported much larger populations than historical records suggested. International collaboration is essential for these discovery efforts because Iraq lacks the resources and expertise to manage all the new findings independently. Teams from universities in the United States, Europe, and Japan work alongside Iraqi archaeologists to analyze satellite data and plan excavations. International funding supports the expensive satellite imagery and specialized equipment needed for these projects. Foreign experts train Iraqi researchers in new technologies that will allow them to continue discoveries independently. Virtual reality and 3D modeling are preserving sites for future generations by creating detailed digital records that capture every detail of important structures. Researchers use lasers and cameras to create exact replicas of buildings, sculptures, and artifacts that can be studied even if the originals are damaged or destroyed. These digital models allow students and researchers worldwide to explore Iraqi archaeological sites from their computers. Archaeological tourism has enormous economic potential for Iraq's future as these discoveries attract visitors interested in ancient history. Technology is helping recover cultural heritage thought to be lost forever, proving that innovation can unlock treasures from the past. But while some countries focus on preserving ancient history, others are tackling modern challenges that affect the entire planet. Japan's plastic waste miracle. Japan demonstrates how environmental challenges can become economic opportunities through systematic innovation. The world produces over 300 million tons of plastic waste every single day, creating mountains of bottles, bags, and containers that pile up in landfills and pollute oceans across the globe. Most countries struggle to recycle even 30% of their plastic waste, leaving the majority to decompose over hundreds of years or get burned in incinerators that release toxic chemicals into the atmosphere. Japan has achieved a remarkable 95% recycling rate for plastic waste by 2025, turning what other nations see as an impossible environmental challenge into a manageable system that actually generates economic value. The comprehensive system that makes this achievement possible operates like a well-organized machine where every component works together seamlessly. Collection trucks follow precise schedules that residents know by heart, picking up different types of plastic on specific days of the week. Processing facilities use automated sorting equipment that can identify and separate dozens of different plastic types based on chemical composition and color. Distribution networks then move recycled materials to manufacturers who transform them back into new products that return to store shelves within weeks. Japanese households separate plastics into categories that include PET bottles, polystyrene containers, plastic bags, bottle caps, and mixed rigid plastics. Each category requires different cleaning procedures before disposal. PET bottles must have labels removed and caps separated. Food containers need thorough washing to remove all residue. Plastic bags must be completely dry and free of any attached tape or stickers. This level of citizen participation would overwhelm residents in most other countries, but Japanese culture makes environmental responsibility a community obligation. Advanced recycling technologies process different types of plastics using methods that extract maximum value from every piece of waste. Chemical recycling breaks down complex plastics into basic molecular components that can be reformed into new materials with properties identical to virgin plastic. Mechanical recycling uses heat and pressure to reshape plastics while maintaining their structural integrity. Specialized facilities handle mixed plastic waste streams that would be impossible to recycle using conventional methods. This system developed over decades of incremental improvements that addressed problems as they emerged and adapted to changing waste patterns. Early recycling programs in the 1970s focused only on bottles and cans. The 1990s brought expanded plastic collection as packaging became more diverse. The 2000s introduced advanced sorting technologies that could handle contaminated materials. Economic benefits of turning waste into valuable resources have created entire industries around recycling that employ hundreds of thousands of Japanese workers. Recycled plastic costs significantly less than virgin materials, giving manufacturers economic incentives to use recycled content. Companies that specialize in plastic processing export their expertise and equipment to other countries, generating revenue from Japan's technological leadership. Japan proves that environmental problems can become economic assets when governments create comprehensive systems and citizens commit to changing their daily habits. This transformation from waste to wealth demonstrates how strategic thinking can turn challenges into opportunities for entire nations. Norway's trillion-dollar achievement. Norway took a completely different approach by managing its natural resources with future generations in mind rather than immediate political gains. The country's sovereign wealth fund has reached an unprecedented $1.8 trillion in 2025, creating the largest pile of money any single country has ever accumulated from natural resource extraction. This massive fund represents decades of careful planning and disciplined saving that most oil-rich nations failed to achieve. Oil revenues were transformed into this massive investment fund through a strategy that required enormous political willpower to execute. Instead of spending oil money on immediate government programs or tax cuts that would make politicians popular, Norway saved the majority of petroleum income and invested it in global financial markets. Every barrel of oil sold generated revenue that went directly into the fund rather than the general government budget. This approach meant Norwegian politicians had to make difficult decisions about spending limits while sitting on billions of dollars they could have used for popular projects. This fund owns approximately 1.5% of all global stocks, making Norway one of the largest shareholders in thousands of companies worldwide. The fund holds shares in Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, and virtually every major corporation trading on stock exchanges from New York to Tokyo. This ownership stake means Norway profits when global businesses succeed and receives dividend payments from companies across every industry and continent. The fund spreads investments across different countries and sectors to reduce risk while maximizing returns over decades. Ethical investment guidelines govern how this money is used, preventing investments in companies that produce weapons, damage the environment, or violate human rights. The fund excludes tobacco companies, weapons manufacturers, and businesses involved in serious environmental destruction. Investment managers must research every company to ensure it meets Norwegian ethical standards before purchasing shares. Every Norwegian citizen is essentially a millionaire on paper through this fund, which equals roughly $340,000 for each of the country's 5.4 million residents. This calculation treats the fund as belonging collectively to all Norwegians, creating theoretical wealth that exceeds what most people accumulate during entire lifetimes. While citizens cannot directly access this money, the fund generates returns that support government services and reduce the need for high taxes. The fund influences global corporate behavior through its investment choices and shareholder voting power in thousands of companies. When Norway threatens to sell shares or votes against management proposals, companies pay attention because the fund represents such a large ownership stake. This influence promotes environmental protection and ethical business practices worldwide. Economic security. This provides means Norway can maintain high living standards even when oil production declines. The fund generates enough annual returns to support significant government spending without touching the principal investment amount. This represents the most successful example of resource wealth management in history, proving that countries can transform temporary natural resource income into permanent national wealth. But while some nations build wealth from natural resources, others face the challenge of producing basic necessities with virtually no natural advantages at all. Singapore's vertical farming revolution. Singapore transformed this limitation into an advantage by creating the world's largest vertical farm that now produces 30% of the nation's vegetables. This tiny island nation imports over 90% of its food from other countries because less than 1% of its land is available for agriculture. The country covers only 728 square kilometers, with most space occupied by buildings, roads, and infrastructure needed to support 5.9 million residents. Traditional farming requires vast amounts of land that Singapore simply does not possess. The massive vertical farming facility stretches across multiple floors inside climate-controlled buildings that look more like high-tech laboratories than traditional farms. The vertical structure allows farmers to grow crops in stacked layers that multiply the productive capacity of limited floor space. Each level contains thousands of plants growing in carefully arranged rows that receive precise amounts of nutrients, water, and artificial sunlight. This approach transforms how food gets grown in urban environments where land costs make traditional agriculture impossible. LED lights and hydroponics replace soil with nutrient-rich water solutions that deliver exactly what plants need for optimal growth. LED lights provide the exact wavelengths that plants need for photosynthesis, eliminating dependence on natural sunlight and weather conditions. The hydroponic system delivers nutrients directly to plant roots through water that circulates continuously through the growing medium. This controlled environment means crops can grow year-round without seasonal limitations or weather-related disruptions that affect traditional outdoor farming. The efficiency gains compared to traditional farming methods are remarkable in terms of both space utilization and resource consumption. Vertical farms produce the same amount of vegetables as conventional farms using 95% less land. Crops grow faster because they receive optimal growing conditions 24 hours per day. Harvest cycles complete in weeks rather than months because plants get exactly what they need when they need it. Multiple harvests per year from the same growing space increase total production beyond what outdoor farms can achieve. Water usage drops by 95% while producing higher yields through precise water management and recycling systems. Traditional farming loses enormous amounts of water to evaporation, runoff, and soil absorption. Vertical farms recycle water continuously, capturing and reusing every drop that plants do not absorb. Sensors monitor water levels and nutrient concentrations constantly, ensuring plants receive exactly what they need without waste. Local vegetable production reduces dependence on foreign suppliers who might face their own agricultural problems or political disruptions. Transportation costs decrease when vegetables grow within the same country where people consume them. Food stays fresher because it travels shorter distances from farm to table. This model is being exported to other land-scarce countries facing similar agricultural challenges, proving that innovative approaches can solve resource limitations that seem impossible to overcome. While some nations focus on technological solutions to environmental challenges, others have achieved remarkable environmental goals through comprehensive policy approaches. New Zealand's carbon-neutral success. New Zealand has maintained its carbon-neutral status for the third consecutive year, proving that sustained environmental success is possible when governments commit to comprehensive long-term strategies. This achievement becomes even more remarkable when you consider that most wealthy nations have failed to reach carbon neutrality even once, let alone maintain it for multiple years while continuing economic growth. Comprehensive policies made this achievement possible through coordinated efforts across every sector of New Zealand's economy and government. The country implemented carbon pricing mechanisms that put real financial costs on emissions, forcing businesses to find cleaner alternatives or pay higher operating expenses. Regulations require companies to measure and report their carbon footprints, creating transparency that makes it impossible to hide environmental damage. Investment programs fund renewable energy projects, forest conservation initiatives, and clean technology development using government resources specifically dedicated to climate action. Renewable energy, forest conservation, and emission reduction programs work together as the foundation of New Zealand's carbon-neutral strategy. The country generates most of its electricity from hydropower, geothermal, and wind sources that produce no carbon emissions during operation. Massive reforestation projects plant millions of trees annually that absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere as they grow. The emissions trading scheme puts a price on carbon that makes clean energy more competitive with fossil fuels, while generating revenue for additional environmental programs. Economic transitions required in agriculture and industry demanded significant changes from businesses that previously operated without considering environmental impacts. The agricultural sector adopted sustainable farming practices that reduce methane emissions from livestock and minimize fertilizer use. Industrial facilities invested in cleaner technologies and processes that reduce their carbon footprints, even when these changes required expensive equipment upgrades. These transitions cost money in the short term, but create more efficient operations that save resources over time. International carbon credit programs allow New Zealand to invest in emission reduction projects in other nations while meeting its own climate goals. These programs let New Zealand fund forest conservation in developing countries or clean energy projects that reduce global emissions beyond what the country could achieve domestically. This approach recognizes that climate change requires international cooperation because carbon emissions affect the entire planet regardless of where they originate. Indigenous Maori land management practices contribute to carbon sequestration through traditional techniques that modern environmental science has validated as highly effective. Maori communities practice forest conservation methods passed down through generations that create healthy ecosystems capable of storing large amounts of carbon. Other countries are studying New Zealand's approach by examining its policies, renewable energy initiatives, and emission reduction strategies. This international attention demonstrates how New Zealand's success provides a practical model for other developed nations seeking to achieve carbon neutrality. But while New Zealand balances multiple energy sources to achieve carbon neutrality, some countries have discovered that their unique geography allows for even more dramatic energy transformations. Iceland's complete energy independence. Iceland achieved something that seems impossible when most nations still burn coal and oil for basic electricity needs. The country now powers 100% of its energy needs through renewable sources, making it the first developed nation to achieve complete energy independence without any fossil fuel dependence. This achievement required decades of investment and planning, but has transformed Iceland into a model that other nations study carefully. Geothermal and hydroelectric power make this possible through Iceland's unique position on top of massive underground energy sources. The country sits directly on the mid-Atlantic ridge, where two tectonic plates meet and create constant geological activity. This location provides access to underground hot water and steam that naturally rises to the surface. Rivers fed by glacial melt and abundant rainfall provide the water flow needed for hydroelectric dams. These two energy sources complement each other perfectly because geothermal provides consistent baseline power, while hydroelectric can increase or decrease based on demand. Iceland's geological advantages include active volcanoes and geothermal fields that create natural power plants across the island. Underground temperatures reach over 200 degrees Celsius just a few hundred meters below the surface. Hot springs appear naturally throughout the country, where superheated water emerges without any drilling required. Glacial rivers carry enormous volumes of water that flow consistently year-round. These geological features exist in concentrations found nowhere else on Earth. Geothermal energy serves purposes beyond electricity generation through innovative applications that maximize efficiency. Reykjavik receives heat for homes and businesses through a system that pumps geothermal water through insulated pipes buried beneath streets. Greenhouses use geothermal heat to grow vegetables year-round despite Iceland's cold climate. Swimming pools and spas operate outdoors even in winter using naturally heated water. Industries use geothermal steam for manufacturing processes that require high temperatures. This energy abundance has attracted energy-intensive industries that consume massive amounts of electricity for their operations. Aluminium smelting companies built facilities in Iceland specifically to take advantage of cheap renewable electricity. Data centers for major technology companies locate servers in Iceland, where cooling costs stay low and energy remains inexpensive. These industries create jobs and economic activity that would not exist without abundant, cheap energy. Economic benefits include electricity prices that remain stable regardless of global oil and gas price fluctuations. Households pay significantly less for heating and electricity compared to other European countries. The country saves billions of dollars annually by not importing fossil fuels. Iceland exports its expertise in renewable energy technology to countries seeking to develop their own geothermal and hydroelectric resources. The environmental impact includes air quality that ranks among the cleanest in the world and carbon emissions that remain near zero for electricity generation. Iceland demonstrates that complete renewable energy transformation is not just possible but profitable. While Iceland eliminates emissions through renewable energy, some countries have gone even further by creating systems that actually remove carbon from the atmosphere. Bhutan's carbon-negative wonder. Bhutan represents the ultimate environmental achievement by becoming the world's only carbon-negative country with -2.3 million tons CO2 annually, meaning this tiny nation pulls more carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere than its entire population and economy create. While most nations struggle to reduce their carbon emissions, this small Himalayan kingdom has achieved something that seems impossible through deliberate policy choices that prioritize environmental protection above short-term economic gains. This remarkable feat happens through a combination of natural advantages and constitutional requirements that cannot be changed by future governments or economic pressures. Bhutan covers only 38,394 square kilometers, making it smaller than Switzerland. Yet this compact nation manages to absorb millions of tons of carbon dioxide that would otherwise contribute to global warming. The country's mountainous terrain and climate create perfect conditions for dense forest growth that captures carbon from the air and stores it in trees and soil. The constitutional requirement that 60% of the country remain forested ensures that Bhutan's carbon absorption capacity cannot be eliminated by political shifts or development pressure. This mandate appears directly in Bhutan's constitution, making forest conservation a fundamental law rather than just a policy that might change with different leaders. The constitution requires that forest coverage never drops below this threshold, creating legal protection for the trees that make Bhutan's carbon-negative status possible. Bhutan measures gross national happiness instead of just GDP, creating a completely different framework for evaluating national success that includes environmental protection as a core component. This measurement system considers environmental conservation, cultural preservation, good governance, and sustainable development as equally important to economic growth. Government decisions get evaluated based on whether they increase overall happiness and well-being rather than just financial metrics that ignore environmental costs. Hydroelectric power provides clean energy and export revenue through massive installations that harness the country's abundant mountain rivers. These facilities generate far more electricity than Bhutan's small population requires, allowing the country to sell clean energy to neighboring India and generate significant income. The hydroelectric plants produce no carbon emissions during operation, while creating economic value that supports development without requiring environmentally destructive industries. Sustainable tourism policies limit environmental impact by restricting visitor numbers and requiring tourists to pay high daily fees that fund conservation programs. Bhutan promotes high-value, low-impact tourism that brings wealthy visitors who spend significant money while keeping total visitor numbers small enough to avoid overwhelming natural systems. Traditional Buddhist values align with environmental conservation through teachings that emphasize respect for all living beings and the interconnectedness of natural systems. These religious principles create cultural support for conservation policies that might face resistance in other countries where environmental protection conflicts with economic interests. Bhutan proves that environmental protection and development can coexist when governments prioritize long-term sustainability, demonstrating how even the smallest nations can make enormous contributions to global environmental goals. But size alone does not determine a country's ability to preserve and share valuable resources with the world. Vatican City's digital transformation. Vatican City demonstrates how the world's smallest country can make the largest collection of knowledge freely available to everyone. This tiny nation, covering just 0.17 square miles, has digitized its entire library, making 80,000 manuscripts available online and transforming centuries of restricted access into immediate global availability for anyone with an internet connection. Vatican City now provides more ancient knowledge to the world than most countries ever will. The historical significance of documents dating back over 1,000 years becomes clear when you consider what these manuscripts contain. Papal letters reveal political negotiations that shaped European history during the Middle Ages. Religious texts include original theological writings that influenced Christian doctrine for centuries. Scientific manuscripts contain observations and theories from scholars who worked before the printing press existed. Art historians study illuminated manuscripts with decorative elements that show how artistic styles evolved across different periods. These documents provide primary source material that historians previously could only access by traveling to Vatican City and obtaining special permission. Advanced scanning and preservation technology used in this project captures every detail with precision that exceeds what human eyes can detect. High-resolution scanners photograph each page using multiple light sources that reveal faded text and hidden details. Specialized cameras detect different wavelengths of light that show writing that became invisible over time. Digital enhancement software improves image clarity while maintaining historical accuracy. The scanning process requires controlled environments that protect fragile paper and parchment from damage during photography. Scholarly treasures now accessible to researchers worldwide include medieval chronicles that describe major historical events from eyewitness perspectives. Ancient maps show how geographical knowledge developed over centuries. Musical manuscripts contain compositions by forgotten composers whose works disappeared from performance for hundreds of years. Literary texts include poems and stories that provide insights into daily life during different historical periods. Philosophy manuscripts contain arguments and ideas that influenced major thinkers throughout history. Collaboration with technology companies made this possible through partnerships that provided expertise and equipment beyond what the Vatican could develop independently. Software engineers created search tools that allow researchers to find specific topics across thousands of documents. Database specialists organized the massive collection using systems that make browsing and discovery efficient. Image processing experts developed techniques that enhance readability without altering historical authenticity. Artificial intelligence helps translate and categorize ancient texts by recognizing handwriting patterns and identifying languages automatically. Machine learning algorithms can decipher scripts that human experts find difficult to read. Translation software provides basic interpretations that help researchers understand documents written in Latin, Greek, and other ancient languages. This represents the democratization of ancient knowledge by removing barriers that kept these treasures available only to privileged scholars with institutional connections and financial resources. The Vatican proves that even the tiniest nations can transform how the world accesses information when they embrace technology strategically. But small size can create advantages in other areas where space limitations actually become benefits for innovation. Monaco's electric vehicle domination. Monaco demonstrates how concentrated wealth and smart policy can transform transportation completely. This tiny principality, covering just 0.78 square miles, has become the testing ground where luxury car manufacturers showcase their most advanced electric vehicles, and where complete automotive transformation actually works in practice. Monaco has achieved the highest concentration of electric vehicles per capita in 2025, with over 60% of all registered vehicles running on electricity rather than gasoline. This achievement becomes remarkable when you realize that most countries struggle to reach even 10% electric vehicle adoption. The streets of Monaco now hum quietly with electric motors instead of roaring with combustion engines, creating a completely different urban soundscape than other major cities. This wealthy microstate became an EV testing ground because its affluent population can afford expensive new technology, and the government actively promotes environmental innovation. Luxury car manufacturers like Tesla, Porsche, and Mercedes use Monaco as a showcase location where wealthy buyers can experience electric vehicles in real-world conditions. The Principality's high visibility during events like the Grand Prix means that electric vehicles get international exposure when celebrities and business leaders drive them through Monaco's famous streets. The charging infrastructure includes over 200 public charging stations distributed across the Principality. Monaco installed charging points in parking garages, along streets, and at major hotels to ensure that electric vehicle owners never need to worry about finding power. The charging network connects to smart grid technology that manages electricity distribution efficiently during peak usage periods. Fast charging stations can replenish electric vehicle batteries in less than 30 minutes, making electric cars as convenient as traditional vehicles for daily use. Government incentives accelerated EV adoption through policies that make electric vehicles financially attractive compared to gasoline cars. Monaco eliminated import taxes on electric vehicles while maintaining high taxes on gasoline cars. The government provides free parking for electric vehicles in areas where traditional cars must pay premium rates. Registration fees for electric vehicles cost significantly less than fees for gasoline vehicles, creating ongoing savings for electric car owners. Monaco's size makes it perfect for electric vehicle range limitations because the entire country measures less than 2 miles from end to end. The longest possible trip within Monaco requires less than 15 minutes of driving, eliminating range anxiety that prevents electric vehicle adoption in larger countries. Residents can drive across the entire principality multiple times on a single battery charge, making electric vehicles more practical than gasoline cars for local transportation. Environmental benefits include dramatically improved air quality and reduced noise pollution that affects thousands of residents living in close proximity. Electric vehicles produce no exhaust emissions, eliminating harmful pollutants that cause respiratory problems in urban environments. Monaco proves that complete automotive electrification is achievable when governments create supportive policies and invest in proper infrastructure. But transforming transportation is just one way countries can harness technology to reshape their energy systems entirely. Denmark's wind power mastery. Denmark demonstrates how persistent focus on a single renewable energy source can transform an entire nation's power system. The country has achieved 80% of its electricity from wind power by 2025, transforming moving air into reliable electricity that powers millions of homes and businesses. This achievement required building thousands of wind turbines that capture kinetic energy from moving air and convert it into electrical power through sophisticated mechanical systems. Denmark became the global leader in wind energy technology through persistent investment and research that began in the 1970s during the oil crisis. The country recognized that dependence on imported fossil fuels created economic vulnerability and environmental problems that wind power could solve. Danish engineers developed increasingly efficient turbine designs that could generate more electricity from the same wind speeds. Government policies provided financial incentives for wind energy development while creating regulatory frameworks that encouraged private investment in wind projects. Offshore wind farms dot the Danish coastline across the North Sea and Baltic Sea, where consistent ocean winds provide ideal conditions for electricity generation. These massive installations feature turbines that stand over 150 meters tall, with blades spanning distances longer than football fields. The Horns Rev and Anholt offshore wind farms contain hundreds of turbines that generate enough electricity to power entire cities. Ocean winds blow more consistently and at higher speeds than onshore winds, making offshore installations significantly more productive than land-based turbines. Grid management technology handles variable wind power through sophisticated systems that balance electricity supply and demand in real time. Advanced computer networks monitor wind speeds across the country and predict power generation levels hours in advance. Smart grid technology automatically adjusts electricity distribution when wind power fluctuates, maintaining stable voltage and frequency across the electrical system. Battery storage systems store excess wind energy during high production periods and release it when winds decrease. Denmark exports excess wind energy to neighboring countries through underwater cables that connect Danish wind farms to electrical grids in Germany, Sweden, and Norway. These international connections allow Denmark to sell surplus electricity when its wind farms produce more power than domestic consumers need. The export revenue generates billions of dollars annually while helping neighboring countries reduce their carbon emissions. Danish companies dominate the global wind turbine market through technological innovations that make their equipment more efficient and reliable than competitors. Vestas and Ørsted have become household names in the renewable energy industry by manufacturing turbines used in wind projects worldwide. These companies employ thousands of Danish workers while exporting their expertise to countries developing their own wind energy programs. Denmark proves that wind power can be a primary energy source when countries commit to long-term development and invest in the infrastructure needed to harness this abundant natural resource. But energy independence represents just one aspect of national success that governments can achieve through strategic policy decisions. Finland's happiness monopoly. Finland demonstrates how comprehensive social policies can create sustained citizen satisfaction that transcends temporary economic or political challenges. The country has maintained the world's happiest population for the 8th consecutive year, according to the World Happiness Report, creating a streak that no other nation has achieved in modern times. This remarkable consistency stems from Finland's performance across multiple happiness factors rather than excellence in just one area. The World Happiness Report evaluates countries based on social support, income levels, health outcomes, personal freedom, generosity, and absence of corruption. Finland consistently scores high across all these categories, creating comprehensive well-being that remains stable regardless of global challenges or temporary setbacks. Work-life balance policies form the foundation of Finnish happiness through generous parental leave systems and flexible working arrangements that most other countries have not adopted. Finnish parents receive extensive time off when children are born, allowing families to bond without financial stress or job security concerns. Companies actively promote policies that support employees' personal lives rather than demanding constant availability or excessive overtime. This balance reduces stress levels that contribute to unhappiness in other developed nations, where work demands often overwhelm personal time. The education system eliminates competition-based stress by prioritizing cooperation, critical thinking, and practical skills over standardized testing and academic pressure. Finnish schools focus on holistic development rather than forcing students to compete against each other for rankings or college admissions. Students learn at their own pace without the anxiety that high-stakes testing creates in other educational systems. This approach creates positive learning environments that contribute to overall societal well-being as students develop healthier attitudes toward achievement and success. Finland's social safety net provides comprehensive security through universal healthcare, unemployment benefits, and support systems that eliminate anxiety about basic needs. Finnish citizens receive medical care regardless of their employment status or income level. Unemployment benefits provide sufficient support for maintaining decent living standards while searching for new jobs. These systems create confidence that allows people to take risks, pursue education, or start businesses without fear of losing access to essential services. Cultural values emphasize community and equality through deep trust, cooperation, and social cohesion that creates belonging and mutual support. Finnish society reduces social disparities by promoting fairness and shared responsibility rather than extreme individualism. The culture emphasizes collective well-being alongside individual achievement, creating social harmony that contributes to happiness. Government policies specifically designed to promote happiness include initiatives that improve work-life balance, strengthen social support systems, and expand mental health services. The Finnish government treats citizen well-being as a legitimate policy goal rather than focusing only on economic growth or international competitiveness. Finland proves that sustained happiness can be achieved through comprehensive policies addressing multiple factors of citizen satisfaction. But while some countries focus on social well-being, others are pushing the boundaries of technological advancement in ways that seem almost impossible. South Korea's 6G network launch. South Korea demonstrates how technological leadership can reshape entire societies through infrastructure investments that most countries cannot imagine attempting. The nation has launched the world's first nationwide 6G network, creating internet speeds and capabilities that seem impossible compared to current technology. This achievement puts South Korea years ahead of other countries that are still building their 5G infrastructure. The speed improvements over 5G technology reach levels that transform how people interact with digital content. While 5G networks provide download speeds around 1 gigabit per second, South Korea's 6G network delivers speeds exceeding 100 gigabits per second. This means downloading entire movies happens in seconds rather than minutes. Video calls display perfect clarity without any delay or buffering. Online gaming becomes completely seamless, with response times so fast that players cannot detect any lag between their actions and what appears on screen. Applications that become possible with this advanced connectivity include experiences that were previously limited to science fiction. Virtual reality environments become indistinguishable from real life because the network can transmit massive amounts of visual and audio data instantly. Augmented reality applications overlay digital information onto the real world with perfect precision and timing. Remote surgery becomes routine because doctors can control robotic instruments with no delay between their movements and the robot's response. This network enables real-time holographic communications that allow people to appear as three-dimensional projections in distant locations. Business meetings can include participants who appear physically present even though they are on different continents. Students can attend lectures by professors who project themselves into classrooms thousands of miles away. Family members separated by distance can share meals together through holographic presence that makes them feel like they are sitting at the same table. The economic advantages of being first to market with 6G include attracting technology companies and researchers who need the fastest possible internet connections for their work. South Korean cities have become testing grounds for technologies that require 6G speeds to function properly. International businesses relocate operations to South Korea to take advantage of network capabilities that do not exist anywhere else. This technological leadership creates jobs and generates revenue from companies that pay premium prices for access to 6G services. Infrastructure investment required to achieve nationwide coverage demanded billions of dollars in new equipment and tower installations across the entire country. South Korea built thousands of new transmission towers equipped with advanced antenna systems that can handle 6G frequencies. The network required completely new fiber optic cables capable of carrying data at unprecedented speeds. This technology is transforming industries from healthcare to entertainment by enabling applications that were previously impossible. Hospitals use 6G networks to transmit high-resolution medical imaging instantly between facilities. Manufacturing facilities use 6G connectivity to coordinate robotic systems with perfect precision. South Korea proves that massive technological investments can create competitive advantages that reshape entire economies. But technology represents just one approach to national transformation. Switzerland's wage revolution. Switzerland has redefined fair compensation by implementing wages that challenge basic assumptions about what workers should earn. While many countries debate whether minimum wages should reach $10 or $15 per hour, Switzerland has moved far beyond these discussions with a minimum wage that reached $25 per hour in 2025. This hourly rate means that someone working full-time at minimum wage earns over $52,000 annually before taxes, which represents more money than many college graduates make in their first jobs elsewhere. This wage level applies to all workers regardless of age, experience, or industry, creating a foundation of economic security that most countries cannot imagine implementing. Swiss workers earning minimum wage can rent apartments in major cities, buy nutritious food, and participate in social activities that would be impossible at lower wage levels. The higher earnings reduce financial stress and allow workers to focus on job performance and personal development rather than worrying about basic survival needs. Economic policies that support such high minimum wages include productivity investments, education systems, and business regulations that create conditions where companies can afford to pay these rates while remaining profitable. Switzerland maintains strict limits on executive compensation ratios, preventing extreme pay gaps between top managers and entry-level workers. The country invests heavily in worker training programs that increase productivity levels across all industries. Tax policies encourage business investment in equipment and technology that makes workers more efficient. Productivity levels justify these compensation rates because Swiss workers produce significantly more value per hour than workers in countries with lower wages. Advanced manufacturing equipment, superior education systems, and efficient business processes allow Swiss employees to generate enough economic output to support higher labor costs. Companies invest in automation and technology that amplifies worker productivity rather than replacing human employees entirely. The impact on income inequality has been substantial as higher minimum wages reduce the gap between lowest and highest earners while creating pathways for economic advancement. Workers can save money and pursue additional education or training because their basic needs are covered by minimum wage earnings. Social mobility increases when people have economic security that allows them to take risks like starting businesses or changing careers. Businesses adapt by investing in worker productivity, improving operational efficiency, and focusing on higher-value products and services that can support premium labor expenses. Swiss companies emphasize quality over quantity, creating products that command higher prices in international markets. This approach generates sufficient revenue to cover increased labor costs while maintaining competitive advantages. Switzerland demonstrates that high wages can coexist with economic prosperity when countries create supportive policies and invest in worker productivity. But economic transformation represents just one way nations can demonstrate their commitment to ambitious goals that reshape their international reputation. Canada's massive reforestation. Canada demonstrates environmental leadership through the largest tree planting initiative in history. The country has planted 3 billion trees as part of its climate commitment, creating new forests across an area larger than many entire countries. This number represents more trees than most nations plant in decades of environmental programs combined. This massive reforestation project required coordination between federal agencies, provincial governments, and thousands of local contractors who worked simultaneously across Canadian territory. The government established tree nurseries that could produce seedlings at unprecedented scales while training crews to plant trees in remote locations from British Columbia to Newfoundland. Helicopters transporting planting teams to areas inaccessible by road, while specialized equipment prepared soil and created optimal growing conditions for new seedlings. The carbon sequestration potential of these newly planted forests will remove millions of tons of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere as the trees mature over the coming decades. Each tree absorbs approximately 48 pounds of carbon dioxide annually once fully grown, meaning Canada's 3 billion trees will eventually capture 144 billion pounds of carbon dioxide every year. This absorption capacity equals removing millions of cars from roads permanently while creating natural carbon storage that lasts for generations. Biodiversity benefits beyond carbon capture include creating habitats for countless species of birds, mammals, and insects that depend on forest ecosystems for survival. The new forests provide nesting sites for migratory birds, shelter for deer and other wildlife, and food sources for species that had lost habitat to development or natural disasters. These forests also prevent soil erosion, filter water supplies, and create corridors that allow animals to move safely between existing forest areas. The economic impact on forestry communities has been substantial, as the project employed thousands of workers in rural areas that often struggle with limited economic opportunities. Tree planting crews Nursery workers, equipment operators, and support staff found steady employment that lasted multiple growing seasons. Local businesses benefited from increased demand for supplies, equipment, and services needed to support the massive planting operation. The scientific approach to selecting tree species and locations involved extensive research to match specific tree varieties with soil conditions, climate patterns, and elevation levels across different regions. Scientists analyzed decades of weather data to predict which species would thrive in changing climate conditions while considering factors like disease resistance and growth rates. This data-driven selection process maximized survival rates and ensured that planted trees would establish healthy forests rather than struggling in unsuitable environments. Monitoring technology tracks tree survival and growth through satellite imagery that provides regular updates on forest development and drone surveys that assess individual planting sites. Ground sensors measure soil moisture, temperature, and other conditions that affect tree health, while GPS systems track the exact locations of planted areas for long-term observation. Canada's reforestation efforts have established the country as a global leader in large-scale environmental restoration, demonstrating that massive environmental projects are possible when governments commit resources across vast territories. But while some countries focus on planting forests to capture energy from the atmosphere, others are building massive installations to capture energy directly from natural sources. Australia's solar power giant. Australia demonstrates how geography can become destiny when nations harness their natural advantages strategically. This continent receives more solar energy per square meter than almost any other nation on Earth, with intense sunlight across vast desert regions that remain largely uninhabited. Australia has built the world's largest solar farm, covering 12,000 hectares, transforming empty outback land into a renewable energy powerhouse that generates electricity for millions of people. The massive scale becomes apparent when you realize that 12,000 hectares equals an area larger than Paris or San Francisco. This solar farm stretches across desert landscape for dozens of kilometers in every direction, containing millions of individual solar panels arranged in precise rows that follow the contours of the land. Workers can drive for over an hour just to travel from one end of the installation to the other, passing endless arrays of panels that capture the Australian sun. Building in Australia's harsh outback conditions presented engineering challenges that required completely new approaches to solar farm construction. Construction crews worked in temperatures that regularly exceeded 45 degrees Celsius while dealing with dust storms that could damage sensitive equipment. The remote location meant that every piece of equipment, every solar panel, and every construction material had to be transporting hundreds of kilometers from the nearest major city. Workers lived in temporary camps for months at a time, with project managers coordinating deliveries of water, food, and supplies to sustain the massive construction effort. The energy output reaches levels that can power approximately 1.5 million homes across Australia, generating enough electricity to supply entire cities with clean, renewable energy. This massive power production equals removing hundreds of thousands of cars from Australian roads in terms of carbon emission reductions. The solar panels generate peak electricity production during midday hours when air conditioning demand reaches its highest levels in Australian cities, perfectly matching energy supply with consumer needs. Economic investment and job creation transformed rural communities that previously had limited employment opportunities into centers of renewable energy activity. The construction phase employed over 2,000 workers, while ongoing operations require hundreds of permanent staff for maintenance, monitoring, and technical support. Local businesses benefited from increased demand for accommodation, food services, and transportation. International partnerships brought together technology companies from Germany, financing from Japanese investors, and engineering expertise from American renewable energy specialists. These collaborations combine the most advanced solar panel technology and installation techniques available worldwide. Australia's solar achievement demonstrates that countries can transform natural advantages into global leadership through massive infrastructure investments. But while some nations focus on generating clean energy, others are working to protect the natural systems that have regulated our planet's climate for millennia. Brazil's Amazon turnaround. Brazil achieved one of the most dramatic environmental reversals in recent history after decades of watching its most precious natural resource disappear at alarming rates. For years, the country faced international criticism as vast sections of Amazon rainforest vanished under chainsaws and bulldozers. Brazil has reduced Amazon deforestation by 70% compared to 2024, creating one of the most significant environmental achievements in modern conservation history. Policy changes and enforcement measures made this possible through stricter regulations against illegal logging and dramatically increased penalties for violations that previously carried minimal consequences. The Brazilian government deployed thousands of additional environmental enforcement agents to critical deforestation zones where illegal activities had operated with little interference. New laws required companies to prove the legal origin of all timber and agricultural products before they could enter domestic or international markets. Courts fast-tracked prosecutions of environmental criminals who once escaped justice through lengthy legal delays. International pressure and incentives motivated this shift through economic carrots and diplomatic sticks that made deforestation financially painful. Major importing countries threatened trade restrictions on Brazilian agricultural products unless deforestation rates decreased substantially. International organizations offered billions of dollars in conservation funding tied directly to measurable forest protection results. Global investors pulled money from Brazilian companies involved in deforestation while redirecting capital toward sustainable businesses. Economic alternatives developed for communities dependent on deforestation included sustainable agriculture programs that generated higher profits than cattle ranching or illegal logging. The government promoted ecotourism initiatives that created jobs for local guides, lodge operators, and craft producers who benefited directly from intact forests. Sustainable forestry programs allowed communities to harvest specific tree products without clearing entire areas. Agricultural extension services taught farmers intensive cultivation methods that increased yields on existing farmland rather than expanding into forest areas. Technology used to monitor and prevent illegal logging includes high-resolution satellite imagery that detects forest clearing activities within hours of occurrence. Ground-penetrating radar systems identify illegal logging roads before they reach mature forest areas. Drones equipped with cameras patrol remote regions where human monitors cannot safely operate. Artificial intelligence software analyzes satellite data automatically to identify suspicious activity patterns that human analysts might miss. Indigenous communities play a vital role in forest protection through traditional knowledge systems that identify environmental changes long before satellite technology detects them. These communities receive government support and legal recognition for their territorial rights that previously went unrecognized. Their traditional practices prevent deforestation while maintaining biodiversity that benefits the entire ecosystem. The global climate impact of preserving this massive carbon sink affects weather patterns and carbon dioxide levels worldwide. The Amazon absorbs billions of tons of carbon dioxide annually while producing oxygen that benefits the entire planet. Brazil's turnaround proves that even countries with severe environmental problems can reverse destructive trends when governments commit to comprehensive changes and international cooperation provides essential support. These achievements across 20 different countries reveal patterns that define successful national transformation in 2025. From China's transportation revolution to Brazil's environmental turnaround, nations have accomplished what seemed impossible through strategic planning and sustained commitment. Each success story demonstrates that geography, resources, and population size matter less than political will and innovative policy approaches. The common elements behind these breakthroughs include long-term thinking that extends beyond electoral cycles, substantial financial investments in infrastructure and technology, and willingness to challenge conventional approaches to national challenges. Countries that achieved remarkable results focused on specific goals rather than attempting to solve every problem simultaneously. These examples prove that ambitious national goals become achievable when governments commit resources consistently and maintain focus despite temporary setbacks or political changes. The world continues changing rapidly, making it essential to study these successes and demand similar ambition from leaders everywhere.